It's time now to take a spin with Headline Roulette. These are the most compelling, random, interesting, and at times questionable headlines you may have missed. Today's headline dealer is Editor-in-Chief at the Post-Millennial and Human Events, Libby Emmons. Libby, good to see you. Are you ready?
I'm all set, Chanel. Thanks.
Headline number one, I wish I never brainwashed myself. That's a quote from the Minnesota school shooter. Seems to have had his regrets. We're kicking off with a slightly darker story today, but this is a very interesting segment. And I know people are still dissecting the manifesto, but that is a chilling set of words.
Yeah, it really is. So this is the man who shot up a school yesterday, who murdered 2 children, injured 14. Many of those are still in the hospital, also injured another few adults. And it turns out that he was transgender, that he had changed his gender recognition certificate, or whatever you call it in Minnesota, where you can change your name and effectively change your sex and say that that's what you're doing. And his parents had approved that. They had signed off on that when he was still a minor. He was 17 years old. He snuck up on this school yesterday, shot through the stained glass windows, and then it was revealed that he had left behind a note and a manifesto and a lot of other writing, sort of similar to the Nashville Covenant School shooter. And in this case, among his writings were ones that he said he regretted being transgender. He regretted having transitioned, that he didn't feel like a woman and he didn't feel like a man. Perhaps he was putting too much stock into gender identities to solve all of his life problems. And he also was saying that he wished he could cut his hair, but it was sort of humiliating to do so, to walk back the gender transition after going all in on it.
Wow. And that's what a sad story that I am not hearing anybody on the left talk about. They're not talking about this manifesto. They're staying away from it. They're staying away from the contents of it. But it's not a question of speculation. I mean, this was a video posted by the shooter. People have downloaded it before it was removed off of YouTube. They've translated it. I guess a lot of it was written in a Cyrillic, right? In phonetic Cyrillic, so he didn't speak Russian.
It's weird.
But he was, writing in a Cyrillic language. So very odd, yes. But those points, those talking points that you just highlighted, you're hearing none of that on the mainstream right now.
No, you're not hearing any of that. In fact, what you're hearing from the New York Times and USA Today and CNN and Jake Tapper and other pundits, they're using female pronouns for this man. They're referring to him as she and her. They barely mention that he's transitioned. A lot of times listening to these broadcasts, you could imagine that it was a young woman who went and shot up this school when in fact it was a man. And they're really going all in on his trans identity without even saying that he was trans, just saying that he's a woman, and he's got this regret. And we've been hearing for years now, detransitioners, people who have gone through this horrifying process, come out the other side, scarred, battered, bruised, saying, hey, I have regret. I had regret as soon as I woke up on the operating table. That's something Chloe Cole has said. She had started to have regrets as soon as she had her surgery. And people are not listening to these young women and young men who go through this and are spit out the other side, get no help, and are just stuck with this burden of having undergone this. And the left does not want you to hear these stories because it interrupts their narrative of, trans beauty and inclusivity and gender euphoria and all of this other nonsense that they peddle onto the American public. But people need to know that there's a good chance if you sign off on gender forms for your kid, they may regret it. If your kid goes through these hormone treatments or, God forbid, surgeries or all of these things, there's a good chance they're going to come out the other side and hate themselves even more than they did going in.
It's so nefarious. And I know that looking back, I just imagine people are going to look at this chapter in our culture's history, and it's not going to look all that different from the evil of Dr. Mengele in World War II. Mm-hmm. It's just not. It's not that different. But again, I think we're coming out of that, and regardless of what the media is not covering.
Yeah, and you also hear people, hear people on the left calling people on the right who oppose trans surgeries. You hear them, the left calling the right Nazis over preventing child mutilation and preventing sex changes and all of this stuff, when really the Nazis were the ones
No.
carrying out this kind of experimentation.
No, exactly. And that's why they want to erase history, too, in schools, because they don't want us to make those connections, or at least the kids to make those connections. All great points. Headline number 2. Here's a strange one. Influencer accused of exploiting remote cannibal tribe for TikTok views. People are telling him things like, leave them alone.
So I've got like an offering for them. This is Demi back here, who knows the tribe and who's bringing us in. He's telling us that this is the way to basically bargain our way and try and make them accept us. Oh God. Okay, he doesn't look like he likes that.
Be careful.
He doesn't like it. All right, guys, let's move back maybe.
We have to go out.
He's not into that. I'm not gonna lie, that is absolutely terrifying.
Oh my God.
Demi, they're scary.
I'm sorry I had to take you here.
Libby, I don't know about you. I find that pretty compelling television. Why are people so adamant about protecting cannibals?
Yeah, I think probably they're adamant about protecting themselves from cannibals. This is not the only cannibal tribe. There's another one out there, I think in India, where if they see you on a boat, they'll shoot you with a poison dart. You know what I mean? Like these are people who don't want to be bothered with modern conveniences and modern man. And you know, I can see why if you're a TikToker out there thrill seeking, you're going to go in search of these cannibal tribes. But what I think is really funny about all this is every time we see video, which is rare, of remote tribes on islands in the jungle or in the, you know, outback or whatever, and they don't want to see contemporary man, we see them as very barbaric, you know, cannibalistic. This is not a way that any of us would want to live. Yet you have the contemporary left with their land acknowledgments and praise of the native indigenous people.
Oh, yeah, opening
always
up the
telling us
DNC
that they-
convention.
yeah, always telling us that these people would have lived in some sort of peaceful, perfect Eden where no one would get hurt ever, and all of the animals would live in bliss, and it would be some kind of paradise. And then we see what's really going on in these, you know, ancient top tribes untouched by modern humanity, and they're eating each other, and they're barbaric, and they have bones through their nose, and they don't have any, you know, of the conveniences that that we think of as essential. So I do question the left's narrative about the untouched tribes and their grace and one with nature. I think
My
it's garbage.
goodness, it's such an like you could take an entire hour unpacking the psychology of what is wrong with the left trying to defend this. But okay, we'll go on to headline number 3 real quick. Gavin Newsom, I don't think Donald Trump wants another election. Here's the California governor saying so at an event recently. Listen.
Stop. I don't think Donald Trump wants another election. You think for a second you want... I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
And you.
This guy doesn't believe in free, fair elections. He tried to wreck this country. What were you there, January 6th?
All right, wrap it up. What do you think?
I actually took the time to watch this entire podcast with these two, and I watched the entire segment about. Yeah, I had it playing this morning. I watched the entire segment. I know you should be sorry because I watched it just for you, so we could talk about it. But also, I wrote it up for the Post Millennial. But but this was sort of madness. Oh. Gavin Newsom comes out there. He's all urgent and extreme and earnest and terrified for all of us American people as he makes these absurd claims that Donald Trump is planning to run in 2028, even though there's absolutely no mechanism for him to do that. He's complaining about the hats. He's got his own hats. He's got his own merch. And I actually went and looked back at some of the footage from Donald Trump at the White White House gift shop, which angered Newsom to no end. Perhaps he wants to install a gift shop in the governor's mansion in Sacramento, and he just doesn't know how to pull the trigger on that, and now he feels he's been bested. But Trump even says in the gift shop, he says, we've got these Trump 2028 hats. They drive him crazy. And that's why he does it. Of course, that's why he does it. But Gavin Newsom, I think, is very clearly planning a run for president. He wants to get out there, and perhaps he's projecting, perhaps this is his wish board or whatever you call it, because he really wants to run against Trump. That's all he wants in this world. He's taken some dings at J.D. Vance a little bit, but he wants to go after Trump. That's his white whale. So perhaps Gavin Newsom is just trying to make that happen.
I think that's the right read, Libby. I think you're spot on. Well, that's all the time we have. Thanks for that run through. Quite a journey, but I think some really hot takes out of that segment. So thank you for making the time.
Thanks so much, Chanel.
Well, that's all the time we have. Remember to download the OAN Live app on your TV and your favorite streaming devices. You can also catch any Fine Point episodes you may have missed right there in the app with our video on demand feature. So spread the word. I leave you with this. Accept the things to which fate binds you and love the people with whom fate brings you together. But do so with all your heart. Good night, Godspeed. Until tomorrow.